I broke my neck and got in a race car the next day, okay? No, he made me do it. I didn't want to. He said, it'll be all right. Just go do it. I'm just telling him.
When he got in that race car, he come down, and if he'd have been close to a casket, they'd have buried him. That's how bad he looked. And Joe just had been out and run 192 mile an hour. He come in with that thing on and his cowboy hat. He said, I'm going to get in that race car. Don't nobody touch me because I hurt all over. He went out and come by first time 192 mile an hour, running like 2 laps. And
he was really, really good on brand new tires. And he could outrun everybody by a quarter of a second.
Ever what he wanted to.
But he'd get way out there, and then after about 40, 50 laps, his tires would completely quit.
Yeah. Well, if you took him out of it, it'd have been a heck of a race.
Oh, it'd been a heck of a race.
All the way through the top 20 the low pressure. Is it the grip or getting the car down low? And you talk to the air people, and they say it's all about getting that belly pan to the ground.
Yeah, it was a perfect race for them. They figured everything exactly right down to 1 lap. With 1 lap more, he probably got past a couple times. Going to Wilkesboro for a funny race. How'd it go, man?
Well, I watched it from home on television, and I guess you said you was all over Kansas.
I was all
State.
over everywhere.
Okay, but well, the 5 car stunk the show up like he did at Bristol.
Yeah, but it made it interesting because he was really, really good on brand new tires, and he could outrun everybody by quarter of a second.
Ever what he wanted to.
But he'd get way out there, and then after about 40, 50 laps, his tires would completely quit.
Yeah.
Okay. So what he done, he run just as hard as he could. Some of them other guys, I think, probably took it a little bit easier trying to make their tires last longer. But even during the breaks and all that stuff, and even the very last of the race, them guys behind him was outrunning him almost a second a lap because when his car quit. But it worked perfect for him because he didn't have to run that extra 2 or 3 extra laps, or he would have lost out all the way around.
It was,
but it made it really interesting watching it like that.
Well, if you took him out of it, it'd have been a heck of a race.
Oh, it'd been a heck of a race
all the way through the top 20.
But you had some different people going up there. The 9 car got up there and challenged. The 6 car got up there and challenged. One of the cars I think that would have probably been really good was the 11 car. You know what I mean? Because he was just continuing. I think he tore a clutch or something out.
His clutch went out early.
Yeah, but not early, but because he was up in there.
It was fairly early.
3 or 4 challengers that it would have been really, like you say, really interesting if the 5 car hadn't been so far out ahead.
I'm assuming, Richard, that the 6 car was coming, and he blowed a tire.
He blew a left rear tire, yeah.
And he blowed a what? Right rear, wasn't it?
Well, anyhow, he hit the wall.
But no matter what, I guess they kept talking about air pressure.
Yeah.
Now, I understand the flexibility of the sidewall and wearing it out, just like taking a stick and working it. But I don't understand, is it the grip or getting the car down low?
It's
the low pressure.
The low pressure makes a bigger footprint on the ground.
I get that.
Okay.
But then you talk to the air people, and they say it's all about getting that belly pan to the ground.
Yeah, whatever.
But he was coming, and then I'm not saying they gambled on low air pressure or nothing, but he said he heard a big boom when they interviewed him. And then the mystery thing, I guess, Richard, another mystery thing was the 9 car went up there and challenged him one time.
Right.
And do you see where he finished?
Well, the deal with the 9 car,
had a slow
I think
pit
he was
stop.
leading. He got up there and led the race, made a pit stop. They messed him up on the pit stop somehow or another, and he got way back there in the back, and he was like everybody else in the back with all that air deal. You don't go anywhere. The 5 car, if he'd have been back there, he wouldn't have went nowhere. But he was in front with good air, set on pole.
Yeah, he loves fresh air.
But he probably the best car on new tires anyway.
Yeah.
But if he'd have been in the back, he wouldn't have been able to go up there. But like you say, the 9 car went up and led the race. After he made a pit stop, he was back about 15th or 20th, and that's where he stayed all day.
But that gets back to what we talk about, Richard. Pit road is so critical.
Oh, yes.
You know, And I tell you, another pretty good car was the 21 car.
Yeah, the 21 car was good. But he got caught for speeding on pit road or something.
And then
but he drove on up in there pretty good.
Yeah.
And the 12 car didn't make a whole lot of racket, but he
stayed there all day.
He was just right there. We was watching the thing. In the 22 car, he got up to second one time, and they threw the green flag, and they passed him on both sides. I thought maybe he could challenge, but he couldn't challenge at all.
But they, okay, there's a lot of pretty good cars got caught up in wrecks.
Yes.
Which was not their fault.
Made mistakes on pit road. Okay.
Well, but they got caught up in the wrecks too. Bubba was pretty decent. He got caught up. And Eric was going to be decent, not great, once he got up there. Then he got wrecked. But I can name some others too.
A lot of people, like I said, that run in the back. Once they got to the front, then they run up front.
Yeah.
Because the cars basically are so aero deal and so close that if you watched it on TV, you see these guys, there's one there and one here and one here. This guy will catch him, and they'll be racing. And the first thing you know, this guy back here, he catches a draft and goes by both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, and
it's a good racetrack for that.
Yeah. The track had a bunch of different groups.
Yeah.
Which I like to see a racetrack where it's not a one groove racetrack.
But, I was definitely after the, of course, we keep up with the 42 and the 43 more than the others. But the 5 was the show. But John Hunter was 2 seconds behind the 22 car with 4 or 5 laps to go and caught him. But he made one pass at him and just used himself up and did like the lost 10th place. So,
well, see, that's what I'm saying. When them tires, they'd run, and every lap was just maybe a tenth slower, and he'd get down to a certain, say, 31 seconds or something, and then it just stopped. I mean, within one lap, they'd lose a second, and they never could come back from that. I was looking. I went through one of the deals and seen a TV set, and they were showing one of the tires that had just, nothing showing but the fabric and stuff.
That was when the 10 car stayed out so long, and when he run to that stage, I don't know how many laps he'd run on it, but I think he was 5 seconds off the pace.
Yeah,
and but the one time. And I forget, I guess it was the first stage probably. The 9 caught the 5 car right there at the end. And the 5 car had quit. I mean, his car just quit. But I wish they had showed his tire, and they didn't. And maybe the people didn't want them to see his tire.
But see, that's one of those deals where I was talking that the 5 car just did skim in on 2 or 3 of those deals, even the last of the race. He was just far enough ahead, and if they'd have been 2 or 3 more laps in any of those things, he wouldn't have won anything.
Well, we're saying that if word again, you know what I mean? Well, and that's been so big this year.
It couldn't have been figured. He figured everything perfect.
Yeah.
In other words, if you look back and see how the strategy was, it was a perfect race for them.
Yeah.
Okay. They figured everything exactly right down to 1 lap difference, because with 1 lap more, he probably got past a couple times. But they had it right down, and it was a perfect race.
But, there was one time, Richard, when we really, the 40, I think the 43, and maybe the 42 needed a caution when the 24 spun, all but spun out coming in the pits, and they didn't throw a caution.
Yeah.
But they didn't need to. But that's the inconsistency of NASCAR again. But that's okay. I'm not complaining about it. It was what it was. And
the pull weight car. I mean, last week he spun out a couple times, and here he was running down the back stretch. I guess there's somehow, and there was 4 abreast, and a car hit him so hard, knocked him in the infield. I mean, and he spun out again. No fault of his own in any way, shape, or form. And I felt sorry for anybody that gets in those situations.
They had the race, and it's over, and I hope the 5 team don't break their arm patting themselves on the back, but they could bruise their arm pretty good. You know, they done a great job, hands off to them. And then, of course, we're going to
Wilkesboro for a funny race. Okay, that's what I call them races.
Well, yeah, and we used to run them, and Richard, it was, I don't know where I enjoyed them or not, but it sure wasn't near as much pressure as it was when it was a point race, you know.
Yeah, I don't know, though, but when it's $1 million to win the race, I would say there's a little pressure somewhere.
Well, but back when I said we didn't have much pressure, there wasn't no $1 million.
They wasn't no money to run either way.
But if probably the races that we run with no point races, you got a little bit of appearance money. I don't know about none of that, but I guess we done it, you know. But,
anyhow, it's going to be interesting once we get up there and do it again. And I don't think they're just going to run one kind of tire this time, I think. Last race they had soft tires and harder tires. I never could keep up with it. So hopefully they just got one thing and just turn everybody loose.
Yeah, and I don't even know all the rules on what they're going to do.
They got some super crooked rules.
Okay.
They got it all figured out. And we'll just have to go watch. And when it's over with, there it is. That's the way it was, guys.
And we can criticize it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 5 weeks might be a little early. You know, I don't know what it would be. Different people are different ways. Some people probably 3 or 4 years old can pedal a car, drive a deal. Other kids can't. So, hey, it's going to be up to you. Don't start it too early, because then they'll lose interest in the thing later on.
I don't have the answer. I know when I got my driver's license, I had to be 16, but the kids now running them go-karts, ungodly ages, you know, and
they changed the formula over a period of time, and to begin with, it was really bad about fading. And you put it out in the sun 2 or 3 days, the thing, it'd get lighter and lighter and probably stay it long enough and turn yellow. But they've got it down now that when you paint it and it's day glow, it stays good at day glow.
Yeah, you had to pick, you couldn't, no matter where you had a heat booth or what, you couldn't paint it on a rainy day or anything early in the day. But now everything is a wrap, and they look probably a lot better than any of our day-glow paint jobs. And it was a job painting them day-glow cars back in the day, but they were pretty.
It's really hard to say. I know, I guess he was up there practicing and crashed the car. I don't know how that is going to affect him. I don't think it will. But, you know, when he goes to Indy, then from my standpoint, he's representing NASCAR. So naturally, we're going to pull for him to do as good as he can. Now, when he comes back to Charlotte, then we hope he don't win the race, because we're in that race.
Yeah, he's talented enough to do it, but he's going against the best of the best out there. And, of course, it's a lot of planning to get this done. And like Richard said, we'll be watching him at Indy and not necessarily pulling for him big time when he gets back to the 600. He evidently he's got racing fever more than anybody I've ever seen.
You know, we went to a lot of different places. I guess, you know, we came back by Watkins Glen, the racetrack, and ran around the racetrack, and I ran part of the track that I had never seen before, because the Formula cars and the Indy cars run a different track than we did. So I got to go back on the other end of the deal. But we've seen so much fancy stuff. Really, probably one of the big highlights was going to the Ford Museum, because they got so much history in that museum of everything, of all people. So if anybody ever gets a chance, I'm going to say they need to go to the Ford Museum and see what all they've collected up there.
I wasn't on the ride, but I've heard that in the Ford Museum they have the chair that Lincoln got shot in. Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. They got so much stuff there. You know what I mean? They even moved houses and stuff into the village over there that some of the scientists that came along in the 1800s. I mean, stuff like that. They got a railroad up there. You name it, they got it.
I've been watching the Braves. They lost 2-1 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. How many bridges are in Pittsburgh?
How many what?
Bridges.
Bridges? I ain't got the slightest idea. Tell me.
446 bridges.
Inside the city limits?
Inside the city limits of Pittsburgh. Look at the magic box.
Overall, yes. Okay. Because there was always that chance of that second place car catching that first place car.
Yeah, it was a good race. It was interesting. You know, television only lets you see what they showed. But if you're sitting in the grandstand, you could look, I'm sure you could look somewhere and find somebody really racing.